This is Rennie Svirnovsky.
And this is Dan Toomey.
We're students at USC's Annenberg School for Communications and Journalism, and we're going to talk about Turkey. So about an hour ago, I walked up to Dan as he was juggling a bunch of subjects, and I'd heard him say something about Turkey, and then a few breaths later say the words, "not that big a deal." And that's not true. Of course, with my concert-damaged ears, I misheard, and it turns out that Dan's actually becoming a bit of an expert on the state of Turkey. So this is a brief explainer about what could happen now that their constitutional referendums change the course of their history for good. So could you maybe give us a brief history of Turkey? Starting maybe with the attempted coup or just a little bit beforehand.
Yes. Expert is quite the daunting label, but I'll try to live up to it. So basically right now, the party that has the majority in Turkey is the AKP, which is led by Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who is Turkey's president at the moment. Last summer, as I'm sure many people heard, there was an attempted military coup in Turkey that was an attempt to overthrow Erdogan.
Why?
And because over the past 10 years, he's become increasingly authoritarian with his rule. He's been basically firing anybody that doesn't pertain to his own views. There was an instance where in the last election that was held, it was supposed to be voting where you weren't going to give your name away. It was
Would you call that anonymous?
Yes, anonymous. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, anonymous voting.
Yeah.
And then the problem was, it's almost like Vladimir Putin in Russia, where if he finds out that you're not with him, you're basically going to be thrown out of the government. And so this is at a time where during Parliament, they had anonymous elections, and they were voting whether or not to grant Erdogan even more power. And this was before the military coup last summer. But what happened was there were people who, during that vote, walked in, as they were walking in to vote, held up signs that said Erdogan on them, and then went in, which then turned into everybody saying, oh, well, now we have to vote for him, because then if we don't show those signs, they're going to think that we didn't. And so that's just an example of what the political atmosphere was in Turkey before that military coup. People were terrified to oppose this guy.
And then there's a military coup after which he starts jailing any dissenters, right?
So, yeah, starts immediately firing. It's something like thousands of academic institutions.
I read it was like 45,000 arrested, 130,000 or so fired or suspended. That includes teachers.
Exactly. Yes, teachers and academics. And a big part of that is, for the past 10 years, Turkey has been trying to make a run to get into the European Union. And because of that, Erdogan has made some democratic reforms, such as like better social security benefits for people, especially of urban lower classes.
But hasn't he been pretty recently pretty nationalistic?
Oh, no, incredibly nationalistic. But the thing is, like, that's combined, those earlier developments I talked about have combined with his own nationalist rhetoric and policies to basically make the EU say, well, we're not going to let you in. You have to improve.
And then all those Nazi comments.
And then all of a sudden those Nazi comments start. And that's really where I feel like now, fast forward a few months after the coup, and Turkey is a nation that is so destabilized in the sense that there's this one guy calling the shots. And there's been a brain drain of him just firing anybody that tries to oppose him in the slightest.
So what's going on? What's going on right now with this referendum?
So with the referendum, basically what happened was, and I thought this was going to happen because voting...
You can see into the future.
Yeah, exactly. That's precisely why. Thank you. So many people keep denying me of that. But basically, Erdogan has so much more authority now as president than he did before. He can appoint as many vice presidents as he wants. There no longer is a prime minister. And Parliament is basically just set up like the Queen of England.
But how did he get that slight majority? Where did it come from?
That's the thing. People don't necessarily... it's a popular vote amongst the people of Turkey because there are a huge body of people that support Erdogan across Turkey. We see him...
the rural kind of religious folk?
Not necessarily. So it's a mix of the upper middle class who are more Islamist, because Erdogan himself is an Islamist. And then also, past 10 years, he's been doing this thing called clientelism and patronage, which is basically this concept where he'll provide social security benefits for lower urban classes to essentially get their vote because he's providing for them, but it doesn't give them any social mobility. So instead, it'll just keep them poor, but also gain their support. So through that, he's managed to gain political support through both lower classes and middle classes, which means that realistically, he should have a good portion of Turkish society, But at the same time, it was very, very close. I mean, it was 51% versus like 48% or something like that.
Yeah, I read something about like 3 million of those votes not being like authenticated or something along
Yeah, and
those
there are
lines.
even
Yeah.
videos surfacing online of people literally just taking ballots and stamping yes onto them, like it was
So
like a conveyor
with
belt.
about probably negative 20 seconds left to this
Sure.
brief future of Turkey, what happens now?
Either a revolt, I think, by his opposition, or Erdogan arrests more people and it becomes more violent. Something kind of similar to Stalinistic Russia, I would
How
say.
does this affect us?
Well, Turkey's one of the only countries that, I mean, they were trying to get into the EU for the past 10 years, but now they might try to side with Russia. I mean, Turkey and Russia have been working together to try to find peace in Syria. Now that they've been working closer with Putin and Erdogan kind of is acting like Putin, we might see a closer relationship between them, which isn't too good for us.
All right. Thank you for listening.